All right, hello again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going over JavaScript 6th edition, the Web Warrior series by Vodnik and Gosselin. I'm up to Chapter 9 of 12, and Chapter 9, as you can see right here, is on JavaScript security. This is another one of those chapters that we're not going to really have time to go over in class, so I'm doing it for completeness right now. I by no means consider myself a security expert. I've been fortunate enough in my life to work with a few people who are security experts, all right? And hopefully some of their wisdom has been imparted upon me. So, only two objectives here. Save state information with query strings, hidden form fields, I should say, and cookies. That's the first one. The second is describe JavaScript security issues and employ coding practices designed to address them. All right, one of the things that we talked about near the beginning of this class, not the beginning, I think it was in Chapter 1, is we mentioned that when you sit there, you being any user, and you open up your browser, and from Google Chrome, you type in google.com, okay? Then what happens when you hit enter is you send a hypertext transfer protocol request that goes out to one of Google's servers someplace, and that server attempts to either answer your request by immediately providing back HTML that would open up the home page for google.com, or if it can't do it, it calls another server that provides the information, sends it back to the first server, and then the original server sends it back via an HTTP or hypertext transfer protocol response. So it's a request-response mechanism. Now, that said, these servers have no idea if you make a request to them, and then a couple minutes later you make another request to them. As far as the server is concerned, it does typically, it does not know that it's the same person or the same machine making the same request. Because HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, by default is stateless. It does not keep persistent data about the site visits. Now, when you think about it, they say there are reasons for maintaining state information. Well, let's look at one of the most obvious. If I go out to Amazon and I put an item in my cart, I'm going to buy a book on JavaScript. So I put that book in my cart. Now I'm called away. One of my colleagues has a question, and while I'm gone, I forget all about my book. So it stays in my cart, I log out, etc. I come back a couple days later and I go into Amazon and I look in my cart and it says that there's something in there. Well, I want that information to persist. Amazon wants that information to persist. Okay, we want to be able to customize individual pages, store informations in multi-part forms, and as I just mentioned, provide a shopping cart. So how do you do that? Well, when you fill out something on the internet and you press enter, you have to have a method, all right? And that method is going to basically say how that information is going to be stored, not stored so much, but I guess initially sent from your client machine to a server machine. If the method is get, then that information is going to be sent in what's called a query string. It's a set of name value pairs that gets appended right onto the URL. So at the end of your URL, there'll be a question mark, and then it'll be like first name equals Jeffrey, then last name equals Scott, etc., that kind of information. Now that's one way. If your method is post, the same information gets passed, but it gets passed in the HTTP header. So what's the difference? If it's passed in a query string, it goes live kind of as plain text over the wire, and anyone who can go and take a look at what you're sending can see that. So you don't, if you're going to be sending confidential information like passwords, credit card information, etc., if you're ever going to be sending that, then you want to make sure that either you send it as a method of post, or if you're going to send it as a method of get, you first encrypt it. So you put it in, you stick it from clear text or plain text type of format into a ciphertext type of format. So passing data in a query string, again, after the question mark. So here's an example. So I'm going to order a book. Actually, I'm going to order 2 books. And that's the ISBN number. Now, they're making it very, very simple. It could be a lot more than that. And you also notice the ampersand separates the pairs. So this is a key value pair. The key is ISBN. The value is 978-039-4800-165. The key is quantity, and the value is 2. As it says, the passed query string is assigned to the target web page location object search property. So the query string is the question mark and what comes after it. All right, so as they say, if you're going to do this programmatically, you can remove the question mark using the substring operator, and you can basically parse or get out of here, if you needed to, the key and the value, the key and the value. All right. Remember that we can convert those individual pieces of information into an array using the split method. So we'd be splitting here on ampersand. Now, hidden form fields, may or may not have talked about these before, but a hidden form field, as it says, the first 2 sub-bullets there, it's a special type of form element that's not displayed by the browser. So it's information that's hidden from users. Why would it be hidden from users? Well, there could be different reasons why it was hidden from users. One, it could be hidden from users because it's personal, or more often than not, it's going to be hidden from users because it really and truly doesn't mean anything to the user. So there's actually no reason for the user to see it. So if I go out to pizzahut.com and I order a pizza online, all right, so just to show you, if I go out to Pizza Hut, yeah, that's fine. Let's go out to Domino's. Domino's.com. I think that's probably for Domino's Pizza, but I don't even know. There you go. So, and if I go through here and say that, sign in. I don't want to sign in. All right, locations, etc., tracker, carry out, delivery. So I want here, I want to carry it out. Okay? Well, it's going to ask me for some information, so that's not good. I don't want to give it that. I do go to Pizza Hut, but I don't want to show you any of my personal information. All right, so I go out here, and I want to start a new order. All right, it'll be, let's say it's a delivery. I'm going to continue as a guest. So it's going to ask me some information. Okay, so it's a house. The street is 123 Main Street. The zip code is 63385, let's say. Okay, so it says find a store. So it says, oh, you're going to go from Wentzville, Missouri. All right, pre-order. Don't know why it said that, but all right, there are no items in your order. So I want to go over to pizzas, and I want a pepperoni pizza, so I add that to my order. And I go to checkout. All right, well, notice what it does here. It tells us the total, it tells us the delivery fee, and it tells us the tax. What it doesn't tell us there is the tax rate. So the tax rate is in there someplace. This may or may not show. I don't know. So like I said, it's very well could be hidden. But the point is, that income tax rate is in there as a hidden field. There's no reason for me to see it. All right, the other stuff makes sense because it's letting me know that I'm going to have a delivery fee. It's letting me know that there is tax, and it's letting me know that the subtotal plus the delivery fee plus the tax equals my total. And somewhere along the line, it's going to also, I know it's going to also tell me that even though I don't have to, it would be a good thing for me to provide a tip as well. All right, I don't want this, so Oh, I don't know if I can even remove that. Now, my guess is if I get out of here, so if I totally get out of pizzahut.com, all right, I'm going to close this. And now I'm going to open it back up again. It did keep some stuff, so it saves some information. Because it thinks, oh, well, he had to leave, but he still wants to make an order. I don't know how long that information is kept in there. That depends on what the information is, the company you're getting the information from or saving it to, etc. So if you say type equal hidden, it doesn't show on the form. If you do a right mouse click and you choose show page source, you can typically still see the hidden field. So when you save information into hidden fields, as mentioned here, it's a three-step process. You complete your order, you submit the order, you might complete another order, and you submit another order. And the point is, when you do all this stuff, all the fields, including the hidden fields, are encoded in the query string and submitted to the server. Okay? So query strings and hidden form fields, the key word here is temporarily. All right? They temporarily maintain information about a state. If you want a more permanent form of storage, you use either cookies or sessions. Cookies, as mentioned there, are small pieces of information about a user. Now, there are all sorts of articles out there on the web that say things like, cookies are evil. No, they're not. I'm just telling you right now. And if you want to fight with me on that, please go ahead. But the idea behind cookies is cookies are text files. They're not an executable file. So when people say something and they go, oh, well, that's an executable file. No, it's not. Cookies are not executable files. All right? They're also very small files. They're typically somewhere in the vicinity of around, I don't know, 4K in size. They're stored by the web server, but they're stored by the server on the user's computer so that when the user logs into a site, the server can check for cookies and maybe apply certain information. So when you visit a server, cookies may be saved. Now, most of the time when that happens, at least what should happen, is you should get a message from the server that says, hey, we may be having cookies that may be being saved, with information about whatever it is you're about to do, to kind of let you know. And usually you have to click a button saying okay or whatever. So again, I mentioned cookies, and then we'll talk about web storage also, which are more like sessions. Just talked about cookies. Temporary cookies remain on the session only as long as you're logged in. What I showed you with Pizza Hut was a persistent cookie. You saw it was because I logged out, I logged back in again. Somehow that information was saved. It was either through a cookie or through web storage, sessions, or something else. Now, most machines you can only serve or hold up to about 20 cookies. Most browsers can only hold a certain number of cookies. As I mentioned, the largest cookie size is 4K. Now notice these rules are not enforced by all browsers. You can use the cookie property in JavaScript, the cookie property of the document object, to either create cookies, to look at cookies, to delete cookies, etc. One of the key things with a cookie is the expiry date. When does it expire? Now with a lot of cookies, if it's a cookie that lasts just for the current session, it might last for up till 20 minutes after you log out. All right, there's also path, domain, and secure that are in there. So here are what those mean. Domain basically says, is it available just at the domain you're at and below or whatever? The expiry date I already told you about. You can, if you want to get rid of a cookie that exists, you can set it to an expiry date in the past. So if I had an existing cookie and I wanted to get rid of it, I could set its expiry or expires date to, for example, 1117, and it would then be gone. I can also set a cookie way off in the future. If I wanted to, I could set a cookie for June 1st, 3001. All right, don't think I'll be around to see whether or not it actually does anything, but you get the idea. Cookies have to have a name, that's required. The rest of the stuff you see here is optional. The path, as it says, is the path on the web server in which the cookie must be located to have access. By default, it's available to all web pages in the same directory. And then there's security, which says, do I want it, if it's set to true, that means I want an HTTPS, which is a hypertext transfer protocol with a secure socket layer or transport layer socket, HTTPS or TLS type of connection, as opposed to HTTP, which is the default. All right, so again, the name is the only required parameter. It must specify the cookie as a name-value pair like I showed you with ISBN and the ISBN, or quantity and then the number ordered. Cookies are created with only the name attribute, are temporary cookies. Okay? Here's an example. Cookies cannot include semicolons or special characters. Cookies can use special characters if you're using encoding. You don't have to worry about any of this stuff. All right, the bottom line is if I put blanks or something, let's say that it saved my name as, rather than a first name and a last name, it saved my entire name as Jeffrey space Scott. That space would be put in there as its ASCII value. All right, that's the way it would show. All right, encode URI component. You may or may not remember, but a long time ago, I told you that a URL, what you type in to the address bar, that's a Uniform Resource Locator, is a type of URI, or a Uniform Resource Indicator. So the URI is used for encoding the individual parts of a URI. It does the conversion for you. All right, and then that sends it out. This, on the other end, then it decodes it. When you test applications that use cookies, the bottom line is this. You should test it on multiple browsers, on multiple versions of multiple browsers, because you might find that it works at least a little bit differently, especially on older versions of browsers. The expires I already told you about. So I can do an expires with a new date, and I can put a value in there. So this would tell it to expire a year and a day from right now. Configuring the availability of cookies to other web pages on the server. You can use the path attribute. Now, I can go and create cookies and try to send them out, for example, to Amazon. And Amazon might accept it if it's I'm going to order something. But I couldn't send thousands of cookies out to Amazon. Wouldn't make any sense for Amazon to accept those. And this is where HTTP and HTTPS are very important here. If you're using FTP, which is the file transfer protocol, and you don't log in, then you're typically in the system as what's called an anonymous user. And if you're an anonymous user, you're not going to be able to send cookies because the system has no idea who you are. So notice when you do this and try to break the rules, you can cause JavaScript to run erratically. If you want to share cookies across some domain, you use the domain attribute, but that can only stay within that domain. So I can't be in one, I can't, for example, go to Pizza Hut. This would be a silly example, but I couldn't have those cookies be sent, saved to, or work with a server for Amazon, as an example. The secure I already mentioned. You want to be able to send it only over a secure internet connection, which is an HTTPS. You may have seen that already, that when you work with HTTPS, that it comes over and it shows a little lock in the upper left-hand corner typically. When you parse a cookie, you're breaking down its individual components. You can use the string object and its methods to extract the individual name-value pairs. It says here, example, Create 3 encoded cookies. Read them from the cookie property and decode them. Then use split to copy each name pair into a cookie array. All right, then determine for each cookie the values. So here's how you could do that. So here we're setting up 3 different cookies. Here we're encoding each one. Then we're decoding the 3. Then we're breaking them up into their pairs. Then we're going to go and print out the individual components. All right. Deleting cookies with JavaScript. First thing as it says there, it's not an intuitive process. I already mentioned this to you. You have to set the expiration date to a date in the past. It could be something as simple as this. Get date -7. So you set it to a week ago. It's a good idea to delete cookies periodically. All right, so let's look at it, the menu steps. So I'm right now, okay, I am in Chrome. So if in Chrome I click my 3 dots that are up here, and I go to History, maybe it's not History. Let's try it again. 3 dots. I think it might be Settings. All right. And somewhere in here, Appearance, Search, Default Browser. All right. I open that. I want to go to the Advanced section. Okay. So try that again. Go to Advanced. Is it under More Tools? No. I don't see an Advanced right there. So let's look again. Settings, Advanced. Okay. I was in Settings. I want to go to, there is no Advanced. Maybe it's down at the bottom. Show Advanced Settings. There you go. All right. So those are down here. Notice I can manage my HSSL there. Clear browsing data. All right. Notice I've got a lot. I haven't closed mine for a while. There's 17,000 items in there. All right. So I'm telling it to basically clear all of that data. Since when? In the past hour, in the past day, in the past week. Now the problem with doing this, and I'll clear it, again, it's a good idea to do it periodically. So now if I come back again and say clear browsing data, notice there is none. All right. But a lot of things that I've got set up, for instance, I've got an account with the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and if I type in JS, it usually comes up and it says JS Online. But I've removed that cookie data, so it doesn't know what that means. All right. You might have seen this when you go in here, and it's got pictures, so to speak, of everything that you have that you've been working with. Mine now now it's gone. There's nothing in there. All right, just about finished with the chapter. And again, that's done in a little bit different way in IE and in Firefox, but the steps are basically the same. All right, storing state information with a web storage API. This is an important one because in the past, when you stored session data, that meant that it persisted. So if I logged out and logged back in again, okay, it was harder to do that on your own program. But with the advent of HTML5, you have something called web storage or the web storage API. Why? Because as it says in that first bullet, some of the uses of cookies never were originally planned. So with web storage, still a draft spec from the W3C, not supported by most older browsers, still use cookies, but web storage offers additional features. And the biggest thing is it's like a database on your computer and it can hold files of bigger sizes. 2 web storage properties are local storage. Notice remains until you run code to delete it. And session storage. So these are the two types. With local storage, they remain possibly forever. With session storage, they're removed as soon as you close the tab or you close the window. Storing and reading web storage is easier than cookies, and there's an example. So you have to let the system know you're doing it for local storage or you're doing it for session storage. Remember, local storage is more permanent, session storage is more temporary. Here's some of the methods that you can use with the Web Storage API. Again, you'll notice, and you'll see this as we go on in our programmatic classes here, get retrieves an existing item, set, all right, either updates an existing item or it sets a new item. All right, security issues with JavaScript. Well, you should always program as though the people who are going to be using your application are, they're hackers. All right? There are viruses out there, there are worms out there, there's all sorts of other stuff. So you should always, always, always consider web server security. All right, when you're talking about doing this stuff. Some of the technology, people put up firewalls. There's different kinds of firewalls. For instance, there are firewalls that are hardware. There are firewalls that are software. There are firewalls that are human beings. If I try to get into an event, let's say I don't have tickets for a concert, and I try to walk in, I'm going to be stopped by somebody who's going to say, "Ticket, sir?" And if I say, "Well, I don't have one, I just want to go," they won't let me in. That's a human firewall. All right. There are also, again, software and hardware things that you can set up, and firewalls are set up to try to keep hackers out. All right. JavaScript programs typically can be downloaded and executed on the local machine only. Okay. You always want to write code to minimize anything happening, purposely or accidentally. For example, you want to make sure that when you write code that's going to handle your forms that we talked about in an earlier chapter, that they're as secure as possible. So just go with the mantra that everything is insecure until you prove it otherwise. There is no magic formula for writing secure code. And again, the problem with that is as soon as you figure out, oh, I did this and now I can keep out this virus, another virus pops up. Again, you want to protect against malicious tampering. You want to protect the privacy of your data. If I ask someone to log in to buy something from my website, I don't want their personal information to be put out there where other people can get it. I want to protect the local file system in case somebody were to get in. I don't want to allow people to inject bad code into the system. All right. Now the same origin, this is a little bit heavy for lack of better words. As it says, it restricts how JavaScript code access is between different windows, between different tabs, and between different frames. Again, the idea is you want to protect your code from everybody, including from you yourself. All right? Again, you want to keep malicious things from happening. All right. The domain property, as it says, changes the origin to its root origin. Sometimes you want to be able to run scripts from other domains. For example, and you've seen this a little bit, you'll see it more in Chapter 12, when we download, we have our choice when we work with jQuery of either downloading it or telling the system to go out to the internet and find jQuery and bring it in for us. That's a third-party script, so there are exceptions. So in this chapter was a very, very short primer to JavaScript security. We talked query strings, hidden form fields, cookies, and we also talked about the Web Storage API. We talked about some of the major JavaScript security issues and how you can hopefully plan to at least mitigate them as much as possible. So that's it for Chapter 9. In a couple minutes, I'm going to come back with Chapter 10. And Chapter 10 is another chapter. It's short, and I'll talk about it. All right, so this is the only lecture for Chapter 9, but Chapter 10, it's important because we'll talk about the role of JavaScript in mobile development. So I'll be back with that very shortly.